Welcome to the Jam Yearbook, everyone. I'm Matt.
And I'm Jim.
We're here to take you on a journey through the years as we explore the music in our lifetime and the impact it's had on us and the world we've lived in.
Welcome to version 1985.
Yes, after a fun stopover in the 70s, we've headed back to the 80s. How you doing today, Jim?
Fantastic.
Ooh.
1985 is going to be a fun year to talk about. I think a lot of it at that time was just experiencing it in the moment. I had a lot of fun in 1985. I was at that perfect age where I was 12 to 13 years old. I was into music, movies, discovering girls, and hoping no one caught me still playing with my action figures.
Yeah, I remember you. It wasn't long after we recorded 75 that you texted me, and you did not sound like it was a good decision to go to 1985. You sounded like you made a terrible mistake. Did you just need more time to dig in as usual?
You know, Matt, I mean, how many times have we looked at the year and we've just had that initial reaction? I had a surface reaction, but once I dug in, I was fully embraced with nostalgia. Now, I'm not going to say that 1985 is filled with music I spent the remainder of my life listening to, but it was pretty fun to visit this week. But before we get going, we haven't done the Reaper in an episode or two, so we'll go there now. And there's just one person who passed away. It was a musician who I listened to quite a bit when I was growing up as a kid. We had his 45s in our house, and that's Ricky Nelson. He died in a plane crash at the age of 45. He grew up in the public eye on television. You might remember Ozzie and Harriet. From the age of 8 years old in the 1950s, he was on that. And then he started playing music on the show. The term teen idol was coined just for him. He was the first musician to be on the top of the Billboard Hot 100 charts when they were first introduced. I think he gets overlooked as a serious musician because of his television background, but he was a talented guy who made some great contributions to the fabric of rock and roll. So I recommend going and looking at his catalog. I think you'd be really surprised. And definitely check out his performance of the song Lonesome Town. It was on the Pulp Fiction soundtrack. It really showcases his voice, and it's really haunting and beautiful. Okay, so let's talk about 1985. I joked about the music we liked in the 80s. I think it was in 1989, and how we're kind of glad we leave it behind us sometimes. And I don't think that 1985 is a complete exception to that for me. But I'm happier to own up to 1989 when I was 12 than I was to 1989 when I was, 16 or 17, because I have
nice disclaimer.
I have no reason to be ashamed for what I listened for when I'm 12 years old. And people, today, I promise I will not rap.
Boo, boo. Yeah, it's weird how when we cover the 70s, we have an easier time kind of just accepting and embracing what we might be embarrassed about in later decades. Like we haven't forgiven ourselves our teenage transgressions. So I'm going to own up to stuff as well. I don't know if there's anything I'm all that embarrassed about. If I owned up to Vinnie Vincent Invasion in version 1986, I'm not sure I can embarrass myself. In 1985, I'm in peak metal form, but it does not mean that I'm completely shut off from everything else. But I have my druthers, especially if I'm buying music.
All right.
It's going to be, it's going to be the
all right. Well, hey, then why don't you kick us off? Let's start with the metal then. What do you got?
Oh, so I'm going to just do a name roll call,
do it.
I guess. But I mean, there's going to be, everybody's going to know these names. Bon Jovi, Rat, Dawkins, Twisted Sister, Do Not Judge Me. Motley Crue's Home Sweet Home is still a killer song. Theater Pain was one of my most played cassettes in 85. And one that I don't hear a lot of people really talking about with AC/DC is Fly on the Wall. That's got some underappreciated songs. Shake Your Foundations rocks, and Playing with Girls, that's probably one of their catchiest guitar riffs that they ever had.
That's a good one.
And last week in version 1976, I'm all on that Kiss bandwagon. And while I liked it at the time, the Asylum, the one they released in 85, that thing's a big turd, and they're just chasing trends now like a lot of bands do. I had a couple really good live albums that I liked from the Scorpions and Iron Maiden. They were kind of, they're kind of like greatest hits. Well, not kind of, they are. And they were gateways to me realizing that I was missing out on a lot of great music from their older albums. So it got me into the mode of digging back through their back catalogs. And No One Like You from Worldwide Live, that narrowly missed my 5 this week. So in 1985, I'm starting high school. I'm starting to play in bands. I had new friends. where I was getting exposed to harder bands like Anthrax, Megadeth, Theo. I still wasn't ready to dive into all that stuff yet. But when I did, I realized how good they were. They were kind of just on when you're over at somebody's house and you're jamming or you're hanging out, and it comes on and you realize, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. And Spreading the Disease from Anthrax, that's a classic.
Well, all right. That's awesome. And great name checking on that. I think I counted like 15, 20
Phew.
bands in there. That's great.
Got to get it out quick so we don't just spend the whole episode talking
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah. But
because there's too much to cover.
there's so much. And one of the things that you have to cover and speak about next is a bet that you lost this week. And I said, hey, whoever wins the Chargers versus the Jaguars game has to come back and report on the David Hasselhoff album. So Matt, it is your duty to report on the album Night Rocker by David Hasselhoff.
Yes. Being a Raiders fan, it was hard for me to root for the Chargers, but as soon as the Jags started coming back, I'm like, oh, please embarrass the Chargers. Please. I don't care what I have to listen to. So part of the deal as well was I had to drink a bad beer while doing it. Why associate a good beer with a pile of manure I'm about to listen to? Right? I don't even know where to begin. Night Rocker from the Hoff. That's right, David Hasselhoff. At the time he was on Knight Rider, his character was Michael Knight. So it wasn't a big leap when they were looking for a name. The cover alone, it oozed 80s. I could practically smell the bad cologne coming off of this thing. And that was on my computer screen. He's standing on the hood of a car that looks like Kit, the car from the show. And the pose that he is striking, holding that guitar, it's like everybody who picks up a guitar for the first time. You see just the way his pick hand is over the strings. More than once, I almost spit my beer. It made me laugh out loud. And it was partly the Bud Light, but I managed to keep it in. Just the first song, Night Rocker. As soon as that first chorus hit, I just started chuckling. And then his remake of Do You Love Me? Holy shit. That is incredibly terrible. And he also covered Let It Be Me.
Yeah.
It's more like bad karaoke than holy shit. Really, this whole thing is kind of bad karaoke. I'll give him credit. He sold a performance, but this album encompassed everything bad about 80s music, except surprisingly, it did not have the Phil Collins drum sound.
Oh, yeah.
I was braced for that. But it may have invented a few cliches too. He had 3 duets with his wife, who played his fiance on Knight Rider. She was equally they're not terrible. They're just not great. It's kind of like shout singing almost at times. And this is no joke. So his wife at the time, who was singing with him, Catherine Hickland, her and the Hoff divorced in 1989. And her next husband's name was Michael Knight.
No.
I shit you not. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I'm like, is this bad fan fiction? What is going on here? But Crazy on Saturday Night, Walk the Line of Rip It Off, Welcome Back, which was on my top 5 from last week. Yeah. There's 4 notes in there, and I'm like, oh, wait, that's not a good sign. Don't be ripping off that. And Austria, much love to you. I would love to visit you someday. But this is a #1 album. And same with Germany. Don't take it too harshly, but even 30 seems too high. Get your act together. I'm not saying I don't have my own shit to work on, but the first step is recognizing there's a problem. And on behalf of America, I'll do that right now. I apologize for Achy Breaky Heart.
Oh, we don't talk about Achy Breaky Heart.
Oh my God.
We have a history. We can't talk about
yes,
that.
we do.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the amount of work Matt put into listening to the Hoff. I just would have been like, yeah, it sucked.
Hey, I lost a bet. Your prize was for me to give a report on the album, not just say it sucked. And I sincerely hope I haven't piqued anyone's curiosity. It's very 80s to say, just say no.
Nancy Reagan.
Yes. Okay, enough with the Hoff, Jim. Move us along to something more palatable for everyone.
All right. I don't know how palatable this is, but you couldn't have lived through 1985 and escaped We Are the World. It doesn't get a lot of nostalgic replay, so younger listeners might not know it. This song was a gathering of all the chart-topping stars and active legends of that era. You have Bob Dylan, Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Diana Ross, Lionel Richie, Michael Jackson, Bruce Springsteen, Paul Simon, Willie Nelson, Dionne Warwick. I mean, the list just goes on. They called themselves USA for Africa. And it was released with the intention of helping the awful famine that was occurring in Africa at that time. It was number one in the charts for 4 weeks, and it did raise $60 million, which I think by inflation prices, that is well over 100 million today. It eventually became the top selling single of the 80s with over 20 million copies sold worldwide. To me, this was the Royal Rumble of music. As a 12-year-old, it was all of my favorite singers and musicians in one place. I would sing along and I'd try to impersonate the different vocals. I think I told you I was like the kid from the TV show The Goldbergs. If you could have, tried to sing along to that, that was me.
Oh, you're trying to make me rant.
Sorry. And seeing that the young stars standing with the older ones, it legitimized the music of my generation. I was like, look, mom and dad, that's Huey Lewis, and he's singing in a song with Willie Nelson. It's not easy to go back and give this repeat listens today. But this week, I enjoyed the nostalgia. I had that tear of nostalgia come out of my eye when I heard it.
Yeah.
I had been so long, and it was nice to revisit the song.
Yeah, and you probably had that narrative in your head that, oh my God, they're really good friends. They hang out in their spare time.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is a battle royal, Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles, even as a tag team, are at a severe disadvantage. I think Springsteen would have won the whole thing. He'd come off the top rope on everyone. With all the 80s. Yes, he would scream that as he's coming down. With all the 80 stars crammed in here, I'm very surprised this song isn't in higher rotation. And here's a slap in the face. They didn't even let John Oates sing with Daryl. Come on, man. They're a duo.
Yeah.
You just relevate them to the chorus. Jeez.
I'm not surprised.
So you mentioned the Royal Rumble, and we did our whole wrestling analogy thing there. Did you listen to that WWF wrestling album? I watched the video for Land of 1,000 Dances. That thing was a riot.
There was a music video on MTV back in the day for that. Yeah. It was hilarious. You're right. But let's talk about another group of people that came together. We'll talk about Live Aid. Live Aid in 1985 was a massive event. I think we kind of missed out on it living up in Vermont. If you didn't have a satellite dish, you weren't getting MTV when we were growing up. And it didn't make its way to our corner in 1985. I remember hearing about it, and I think I saw concert videos with highlights, but it wasn't until YouTube existed before I was really able to go back and see some of the performances from it. The legendary Queen performance is just that, absolutely legend. Freddie and his band were in top form and he stole the show. If you watch that movie that came out, Bohemian Rhapsody, just a couple of years ago, the last part of that movie, really the crescendo of it is Live Aid and his big comeback onto the scene. But there were some stinkers. One thing was the Led Zeppelin reunion, and that's more a tale of infamy.
Yeah, it is. And Queen has to be tight. Every song they do, you got to be tight. You got to know what you're doing. But yeah, Led Zeppelin, they really, even especially retroactively, this performance is not well regarded. I heard a lot of blame was rejected at Phil Collins for that. And yeah, he should have rehearsed. I mean, they all should have rehearsed together, but it's not all on him. I mean, it's hard enough for one drummer to replace Bonham, and they tried doing it with two. and him and Tony Thompson, there's multiple times where if you watch it, Phil Collins just stops because he knows he's not doing what Tony's doing.
Yeah.
And maybe they thought, oh shit, we got this. But no, you didn't. It kind of seemed like almost John Paul Jones was the only one that had his act together that night.
He was the only one who looked like he was having a good time. You see a lot of looks over the shoulder from Robert Plant. That man knew what the music was supposed to sound like behind him, and he wasn't happy with it.
But even like backstage interviews with it, where Robert Plant kind of mentions having a solo career, and you see Jimmy Page roll his eyes. So there's, not everything is kosher. So yeah, they probably didn't rehearse as much or at all. And as a whole, I had some of that same disconnect with Live Aid. I was aware, but maybe not until it was long gone. But being that young, I couldn't see beyond my own horizon. I still wanted music, really. Any entertainment that I was going for, I wanted to be fun. I wasn't going to be open to a deeper message. And I know this would have been fun if you were there, but all we got were news stories about the event and what it was trying to do and all that. So did you ever hear about Hearing Aid? This was the heavy metal version of We Are the World and Do They Know It's Christmas? I completely spaced on this for version 1986, but it's probably better that we tuck it in here with all this benefit talk in 85. All the metal bands that I was talking about earlier, plus more: Judas Priest, Quiet Riot, Queensryche, on and on and on. I can't imagine what that was like. All the singers and guitarists constantly just trying to outdo each other.
I do remember it. And also the best thing was Michael McKean from
Yeah,
Spinal Tap
yeah,
standing in the middle of the whole chorus of them singing
yeah.
loud. It was great. I actually enjoyed going back and looking at it this week. We definitely had a lot of Hairspray and a lot of guitar egos.
Oh yeah, yeah. I hope there was no smoking going on.
But to be honest, I kind of liked the song. It was fun to go back and listen to. I probably hadn't heard it since I was staying at my aunt and uncle's house watching MTV because they had it back in the day, and Headbangers Ball was on. So
Yeah,
yeah, man.
yeah, and
I
it
was
was
probably
kind of off topic too.
yeah, it was
It
kind of
wasn't talking
weird.
about the whole family. I mean, the song that we're talking about is We're Stars. It was almost like them looking at everybody else doing this and go, hey, no, screw you. We're stars too.
We're stars. All right, let's back up a minute. So we like to shit on Phil Collins. We've done that in a few episodes,
Mhm.
but I have to admit something straight up. I was a big fan of the album No Jacket Required. It was good for its time, but something that I don't get very nostalgic for today. So here's a question for you. Why did such an accomplished drummer as he was with Genesis early on turn to such terrible electric drum sounds? He's so good. And this music would have had a more timeless quality if he just stuck to regular drums.
Yeah, we do have fun with poking at Phil Collins, but I don't think I have as much straight dislike for him as I make it out, but it's a kind of a lot of fun to just pile on when somebody's ranking on somebody like that. But this is prime Phil Collins. And if go to the Google machine and look up, reviews of his drumming, he's a very well respected drummer. But everything after this was really downhill. And the electric drums were just something that slowly started trickling into his kit with
Mhm.
Genesis, and it kind of culminated in the 80s. And he had been doing so much drum work for other people and so many collaborative efforts that I think he was just taking in so many of these influences. And it was about pushing what he could do. He was more than just a drummer. With all those experiences, it was out of experimentation and how his music evolved. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a prog thing. Even, he's left prog a long time ago by this point,
Mhm.
but it could be in his blood. Straight up rock guitarists usually settle on a sound, but prog is where you get into, people having 3 dozen pedals in front of them. And and I know I have a problem with the drum sound, but on the other hand, because I grew up with it, I can't imagine it not being there. Yeah, it would be kind of interesting to hear, just a regular acoustic drum set in these songs just to see what they could do. And some of it is, but it's so gated and reverbed that it sounds electronic. It has an identifiable sound, and the drums were that thing in the 80s. I can pick it out without a problem. It's just how music evolved.
Yeah, I get your point. I can't argue with you about that. I think a lot of the 80s artists fell into the trap of trying to capture that sound from the decade, and all too often it was left to the drums. I think some of these sounds would have had a more timeless quality. You're right. To me, it was the keyboards, and that's really what made the
Mm.
80s sound. If they had had these keys with real drums, I think there'd be a lot more 80s music that would be considered classic today in the same way that the 60s and 70s music is. But, you're right. The writing and the musicianship behind this album was brilliant, and it deserves all the praise it received at the time.
And I think we can't overlook or forget how successful Phil Collins was back here. And I think that runaway drum sound, I think it was because of him. I think people saw the success he was having, and people weren't complaining about that drum sound. And probably everybody was like, oh, that's really cool. And look how much ass Phil Collins is kicking right now.
Yeah.
maybe he's onto something.
Yep.
Let's go do what he's doing. So we can't forget how big of an influence at the time Phil Collins probably was.
Yeah, until he puts out I Can't Dance, but we'll talk about that down the road.
Yeah.
All right.
We don't
So,
have to.
no. Moving away from Phil Collins, when it comes to great music, how groundbreaking was the Dire Straits album Brother in Arms?
Oh yeah, I hadn't really listened to this whole album until this week, believe it or not. This was so far away from what I was listening to,
So
and at the
far
time,
away
away
from
from
me.
me, you got what I was doing there. You know, this was so far away from what I was listening to, and it was kind of my version of old man guitar rock. I heard and enjoyed the hits. I've always loved Martin Knopfler's playing, but they've always been one of those bands where I don't find much beyond the hits to enjoy. You've given me a new appreciation for older Dire Straits albums, and especially on this album, there's such a difference between the hits and everything else on this album.
I got to see Dire Straits in 1992. So yeah, we are talking 7 years later, but they don't put out an album, but every about 5, 6 years anyway
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
And they were still playing a lot of songs off of this. And the song Why Worry became one of my favorite songs in my early 20s. When my parents split up, it was really tough on me. And I moved out of the family house. I moved into my very first apartment and I was in my bedroom and I just had the ability to be in my own space for the first time in my life. I took a calligraphy stencil and I put the lyrics to the chorus of this song on my wall in my bedroom. And I hadn't thought about that for a long time. It was a bittersweet memory for me this week. I forgot this song was on the album. I was listening to it and all of a sudden it came on and I was like, whoa, big, deep memory.
Why Worry was the song that got me. I had never heard it until this week. Wow. It might have been not my, it would have been lost on me, because it's not loud and obnoxious. That's which is what I was more leaning to. And I
Mhm.
hadn't really gone any through big life loss, but it got me this week. I definitely got those lyrics.
Yeah. Outside of that, the MTV got their great marketing campaign, I Want My MTV. That was actually born out of the song Money for Nothing. How many rock stars, pop stars, anybody did you see do the little I Want My MTV thing?
It'd probably short a list of people who didn't say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Money for Nothing was the very first video to ever play on MTV Europe.
And I'm sure every time one of those ads ran, Sting went ka-ching. He
Oh,
had to. Sting being Sting.
yeah. Moving away from Dire Straits, I was never a big Aha fan. Didn't really know much about them other than that one song, Take On Me. But they had one of the best music videos of the 1980s. And that song is still a good song today with that classic 80s sound. I love the keyboard line in it.
Oh yeah, Take On Me, that has stood the test of time. Still very listenable. Did you ever see the spoof on Family Guy?
Of course I have.
Where were you? I don't know.
All right. I can't leave 1985 without mentioning the worst number one hit of all time. And that is Starship's We Built This City.
Oh God, I've been waiting for this. Are we going to tear into this song?
Oh, yeah, we are.
Thank you so much.
I know. Someone right now is out there listening to this and saying, hey, man, I like that song. Or maybe not like that, but
It doesn't sound like a twang song.
but I forgive them because it is an earworm. And I liked it as a kid. The hook is a nightmare because it gets stuck in my head. Mentioning this song right now will probably cause a bunch of people to have it spin around in their head. If they listen to this show, it'll do it to me. If all you have to do is, if you have one song stuck in your head, walk up and go, we built this city on rock and roll. And that's it. The rest of your day is ruined. It's
Yes.
all, it will stay there. But that song is supposed to be critical of the music industry. And it uses all of its glory to ride its way to number one. It's like, whatever. And what the hell does Marconi plays the Mamba mean? Like, who is Marconi? I get it. It's catchy, but it's so dumb. Knee deep in the hoopla. Like, I'm sorry. Kid me liked it. Adult me recognizes it as a bunch of phonics stuck together to make a number one song.
Wow, talk about standing ovations. I like that. This song right here and others like it, it's what makes 80s music so hard to revisit for me. You know, at the time it was new, hip, and being young, I was maybe okay with it, but it didn't take long to wear out its welcome. And you never know what's going to sneak up on you on a playlist. So I'll try to avoid, like a Spotify 80s playlist just so I don't have to hear songs like this. And you're right. It's complaining about music being shit, yet it is shit unto itself.
Mhm.
And this is from a
Yeah.
band that was all about 1960s, San Francisco, counterculture, Woodstock. And Bernie Taupin was a co-writer.
That asshole.
I mean, Jesus. So we're here with, worst songs of the year. I have a contender, Tarzan Boy by Baltimore. Calling this cheesy. Oh, that's staying in. Calling this cheesy would be a compliment. At least we built this city, had a little bit more of a hook to it.
Yeah,
That
it did.
stupid Tarzan yell.
All right. So before we leave 1985, let's show some respect and not leave it on a bad note. Let's talk about Robert Palmer and the Power Station, what he did with that, but then his huge album Riptide, Addicted to Love. That song was everywhere and wherever you went. And if you see a montage of 80s music today, you're going to see footage from this music video.
I mean, you talked about the video for Dire Straits. I mean, his videos for Addicted to Love, I mean, that's right up there with Peter Gabriel and the Dire Straits as some of the most identifiable ones of the 80s. We've mentioned a couple stinkers, previously, but 1985 is one of the last good years of pop and straight rock for my taste.
I mean, look at what Heart did. Heart had one of the biggest, if not their biggest album in 1985. It was self-titled. It had 3 huge songs right in a row on the album. What about Love, These Dreams, and Never? They were all cool songs, and they were all over MTV and on the radio. Ann Wilson might be on your Mount Rushmore of women in rock, but Nancy Wilson was my first rock star crush. I wanted to marry her when I was 12.
Oh, you weren't alone there. I mean, the big hair and the way she was dressed and all the makeup. Oh yeah, that was pure 80s, what every teenager was looking for, I think.
Yeah.
Teenage boy, I should say.
Yeah.
And last week in version 1975, it was Heart's debut. So here we come, 10 years later, and here they are with this huge album. I mean, and these two records could not be more different. Last week, we're listening to Magic Man and Crazy on You, and now it's What About Love and Never.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, you've heard Phil Collins music that he was playing in the 1970s. I don't think that it was uncommon for bands to try to stick with trends. I do wonder what Ann's husband, Cameron Crowe, thought. He was a Rolling Stone writer and became a great filmmaker using a lot of 80s and 90s alternative rock in his soundtrack. My guess is that when he heard this album, he just smiled and nodded and said, "Yeah, that sounds great, honey. Yeah."
Yeah, that would have been an interesting inner monologue to hear. Kiss isn't the only band that's chasing trends. Heart just did it a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. And then we have Whitney. Whitney Houston made her debut in 1985. Straight away, she was a powerhouse of music and she was an instant diva. I don't mean diva in a bad way. She was a bona fide born legend. I had a few of her 45s and I just loved her voice and her smile. She had an energy that she gave off that drew me in. The Greatest Love of All is still today her best song, in my opinion, and has such a great message. Yeah, her life ended tragically, but she touched a lot of hearts in her lifetime.
Yeah, it's amazing how she was almost immediately put up on a pedestal. And she earned
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
She
Yeah, she
totally
did.
earned it and deserved it. Yeah,
Yep.
she was a great
Yep.
talent.
Yeah.
So speaking of pedestals, I think we're about ready to wrap this up and move on to our 5.
It is time, isn't it?
We'll each have our 5 songs that we put up there with the best of them all. 1985 was your choice, Jim. So it is your duty to lead off. what is your first song in your 5?
Well, I'm going to start actually with all of Billy Joel's greatest hits, volumes 1 and 2.
Okay, I can live with that.
And foul ball,
Yeah.
but this is probably what I listened to the most in 1985. I was Billy Joel obsessed, but I'll get on to my real choices. And I'm going to start off with something that's probably obscure to many people listening to this show for the first time.
That's my gig.
But that's your thing. And it's Tom Waits and the song Downtown Train. I wasn't aware of this song at all in 1985. I discovered the Rain Dogs album in 1993. And I remember when I first got to this track, I thought, oh, that's cool. This guy's covering Rod Stewart. I was a bit naive. Rain Dogs is a really cool album. It's got a really unique style, unlike anything else coming out at its time. And there's definitely some New Orleans influence going on throughout it. There are other songs I could pick off of it, but I chose this song because I thought listeners might give it a chance if they don't normally give Tom Waits a chance. So I hope maybe if they hear this song, they'll be like, oh man, I'm going to go dig through his catalog and they'll find some interesting stuff to hear. It's always a good place to start for a casual listener.
Oh yeah, because he's always interesting. Everything he does, it's unique. I know he's not everyone's favorite, but I can't help but wonder how he comes up with these songs. It would be very interesting to watch him in the studio
Oh
create
yeah.
these songs. Sometimes it sounds like he's making it up as he goes along. And I kind of got that vibe from this song. It just kind of felt like a natural, almost like stream of consciousness that was coming
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. It does feel that way.
How much whiskey and cigarettes do you suppose is needed to curate that voice?
I don't know, but I wish I could sit down and enjoy a couple of shots with him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's my number one. What is yours?
I am going to lead off with In Excess and What You Need. The writing on this song has always been impressive. All the different layers and the parts coming in and pulling back with that tight rhythm section in the bass groove. Something we haven't talked about yet for this being an 80s show is the saxophone.
Yeah.
And Michael Hutchence takes a great singer to fill in the gaps on a song like this.
Yeah. I'll always be forever grateful. I talk to you about this a lot. I get to tell people my first concert was in excess, and I owe that to you and your brother Mark for taking me. They're such a good band. And this song is a perfect example of everything they were great at. Their guitar, horns, arrangements, and you're absolutely right. A perfect front man. Good choice.
Cool. All right. What is your number 2 song?
All right, Matt. So my second song is Simple Minds, Don't You Forget About Me. And thank you, Julie Ricker. I had to take it out of one of your choices for this week. You had this edition. I liked this song when I was a kid, but I became more attached to it in 2011 when I was playing the bar circuit around Burlington with Mitch. I talk about that a lot in our 2010 episode and all the songs we played from 2010, but this was one of the older songs that we played in the set. I'd waited almost 20 years to get up on stage consistently, weekend after weekend, to entertain people with my acoustic guitar and some music. That's who I am. We closed every gig with this song. Usually people were really lubed up and really got into singing along at the end. And Mitch would keep that kick going in the part where it quiets down toward the end. And I thank everybody for coming out and, thank everybody for coming. We're going to play this the next time, and then we come back in and do the last la, 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 final sing along. I was finally doing what I'd wanted to do. After we'd finished, I have to admit, I felt a bit like Judd Nelson at the end of The Breakfast Club, punching my fist in the air. This song now takes me back to that moment when I hear it. And I'm so thankful I had that experience in my life.
Oh, great pair. Timeless movie and song. I can't separate the two. I hear this song and that's exactly what I see. I think both of those are universally loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
They better be.
They are. I think they still are. All right. What is your second song?
My second song is going to be Just a Gigolo from David Lee Roth. Dave always seemed above it all and never bitter about the split with Van Halen, at least outwardly.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been different behind closed doors, but this is just a great, happy, entertaining song that I can't help but smile and sing along to. David Lee Roth was always about entertainment value in whatever he was doing. And he's entertained me for practically my whole life.
You're absolutely right. Like, he flashed that smile. He never had
Yeah.
any type of bitter look in his eye in anything he was ever doing when the camera was on him. And I loved this. I wish it was actually released today and motivated people to dig back to Louis Prima, because, that's where David got it from. And he does a really good
Yep.
job emulating kind of that, the mannerisms, the bits of the songs, bum, zippity bop, stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
I'll also wonder why people had no problem with Dave making a drastic change in sound, because obviously this is very far off from Van Halen, but this is the very first thing we heard from him after the breakup of Van Halen. Eddie had a whole bunch of original Van Halen fans he could never make happy after the band split.
Well, and the difference is because the band was called Van Halen. I think it was a lot easier to just straight up accept anything different that Dave was going to do.
Yeah, he was just a
Whereas
showman.
Van Halen, nope. Yeah, he was. He was a
Yeah.
complete showman.
Yeah.
And if you've never listened to if anybody else is aware of the WTF podcast with Mark Maron, he's got David Lee Roth on there. Just go listen to it. That guy was still a bundle of energy, and it gives you a different perspective on what he brought to Van Halen.
Yeah, what he brought to Van Halen, you probably still see in everything else he ever did. So, yeah, good stuff. Good song.
He brought in the chicks, man.
Yeah, he did. Wait till California Girls comes out next.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is that your number? Is that your third song?
No.
All right. So what is your third song?
It's probably the exact opposite of California Girls. And it's a song by The Cure, In Between Days. I came really close to picking Close to Me off this album. But when I listened to the two songs, this is the one that sounded much less like a typical Cure song, if that makes sense. I think you could put any 80s powerhouse vocalist like Bono or the guy from Simple Minds over this instead of Robert Smith, and you would have had a 1980s John Hughes theme. And my point's not to take away from their uniqueness, but to show that they were writing songs in that time, in that era, just as good as everyone else.
And thank you for picking a Cure song that I like. This is probably the song I think about when somebody says The Cure. Close to Me, I would have been on board with that as well. That's a really good song. And maybe I'm softening on The Cure a little bit. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Maybe I just like, onesie twosie songs.
I just knew how to hold off and bring them in the right way.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what it is.
Yeah. I don't need a barrage.
Yeah. I let the audience even decide one week.
Yeah.
All right. What is your third song?
I'm going to go with Stevie Ray Vaughan and Look at Little Sister. It's not often that I'll say live versions of songs are better. And that's not to say the studio version doesn't kick ass, because it does. And I have it on good authority that Stevie Ray Vaughan can play a little guitar here and there when he's needed. And I think it's on Austin City Limits where he breaks the string and he just keeps chugging along like nothing ever happened. And you don't hear a miss note or a wrong note. He just was one with his guitar. If you haven't seen it, there's also a live version of him doing this song with Jeff Healey. That kicks ass too.
Yeah. I actually was quite taken back by this because I didn't realize that there was a third member of Double Trouble, the band, Reese Wayans, playing piano on this. And he wound up being inducted into the Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame with Double Trouble and was considered the key player for the band. So you adding this song to, did I just tell you this?
Yeah, I'm kind of speechless right there.
But there is a third member of Double Trouble that was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And when I heard the song, obviously, the backbone of the band, the bass and the drums and Stevie's guitars are incredible. But I put on the album version of this and the keys just add something to it along with everything.
They kick ass.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So immediately I was like going to Wiki and I was like, what's going on here? The album, personnel, who's playing. And I had to look this guy up. But then I was blown away by the fact that they admired him so much in the work that he did with them, even though he's not a household name to us the way the rest of the band is. He's in the Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame because they respect him that much.
Awesome. And the keyboards are just as important to this song as
Oh,
Stevie Ray Vaughan's
absolutely.
guitar,
Absolutely.
especially live when he just carries on. Oh, it's incredible.
It's amazing.
All right, Jim, what is your next song?
I've been waiting to bring a song from this band for this entire show. And I'm probably not done yet. We're probably going to end up in a fist fight when we get to
You're goddamn right.
But it is Huey Lewis and the News, and the song is The Power of Love. I was as into Back to the Future as anything else in 1985, as much as the Billy Joel Greatest Hits Volumes 1 and 2. Not too far off, but it was a great year for movies. And 12 to 13-year-old me, I was there every weekend. Rocky IV, Weird Science, The Goonies, Lady Hawk, Spies Like Us, Commando, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Yeah, the music, this is what we're talking about. Back to the Future ruled them all. That soundtrack was amazing. Quentin Tarantino put that movie on his top 5 perfect film list. This song was a great addition, and it was such a compliment to the film. I'd already had a huge thing for Huey Lewis and the News, and this song, in my opinion, is one of their best. It features everything good about them. The harmonies, the horns, Huey belting it out. It was a magical song for me from 12 to 13 years old up until this very day. I'll go listen to it right now. It's amazing.
Oh, definitely. I can't wait for that certain year. We can have a fist fight over that. There might be 2 songs off that. I mean, we could just each add 5 from that album.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
That year. Oh my God. Great pick for the playlist. Huey Lewis. Yeah. One of my favorites, definitely as well. This song is a good example of how there was still a lot of great rock music that was popular.
Yeah.
And a great example of how movie soundtracks gave us so much good music.
Yep.
Just like Breakfast Club, how these movies that were aimed at kids our age had music that were aimed at our age too.
Yes.
And we'll always have those connections in our head.
Yep.
Yeah. Great memories there.
Good. All right. What is your number 4?
My number 4 is Black and Blue with Miss Mystery. I absolutely wore this cassette out. Hey, it's a hair metal ballad, right? That's usually what happened to at least get a hair metal band on your radar. I bought this tape, Without Love, based on this song because I saw the video of Good Rockin' Tonight, and the whole thing, it quickly became a favorite. They're an underrated and probably an under the radar hair band lyrically, like most hair metal songs. It's not deep, it's typical hair song, lost love, but 14-year-old me, I couldn't get enough of it. And for a ballad, the solo section on the song rocks.
Yeah, it's good. This song screams the Matt I knew in high school. I'd never heard it before this week. And I actually expected it, take no offense, to be some really bad hair metal.
Well, you had like a 50-50 chance. So
I did, but it's really good. And you know what? I might have been the pop ballad guy from the 80s. We talked about this in an earlier episode. I think that was 1984, but you were the hair metal ballad guru at the same time. You're a big softie.
Yeah, but when those songs are like 18 in life, you're not viewed as much of a softie.
No, that's true.
All right, what are you going to finish your 5 with?
I am going to finish my 5 with, well, I've got to stop here. Corey Hart, Never Surrender. I have to put this on the list out of principle. When I did my Maroon 5 show, podcast previous to this one, you came on and you interviewed me on the show. And I had to pick one song I'd take with me to a desert island. And this is it. What can I say? This is my ultimate fight song. At some point, I heard it when I was at the lowest of lows, and it brought me back. The saxophone solo is classic 80s. And let's face it, we all know I like a good, thick slice of cheese of music in my life sometimes. And this song fills that need.
Oh, and I remember I actually went back and listened to that show of Maroon 5 because it was a good show. I enjoyed doing it. And I remember you sounded really apprehensive when you were revealing this song as your Desert Island single. And we've all learned my leanings, and I think we've learned yours too. You love and you need a good fight song in your life. Keep doing that, man. Music should inspire you.
Yeah, it
Oh,
does. It moves me. All right. So what's going to move us to your last song? What's your fifth?
Oh, finally, the outfield. All the love in the world.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like you with Billy Joel's greatest hits, I could add this whole album and just put an exclamation point at the end of this whole episode. And it's not Your Love. This song's just as good, if not better. Your Love, it's kind of approaching what I need to moderate myself on, by listening on its own. Within the context of the album, I have to hear it. Plus, I used to play All the Love in the World in a band, and this is where I go on a tangent about Play Deep. This is my favorite rock album of 1985. I could argue it's probably the best album of 1985, bar none. Every song is great. All the guitar hooks and the singing. Tony Lewis and John Spinks, their vocal tones, they couldn't be further from each other, but they were awesome together. There was
Yeah.
something with that dichotomy of their tones that just sat in my head so just in that sweet spot. And Alan Jackman's drumming was perfect here. I don't think I could change one thing on this album and make it better. It's perfect.
Yeah. You say this is your favorite album from 1985, but I know this is one of your favorite albums of all time because we just talked about that show Maroon 5.
Yes,
and when
we
you
did.
were on the podcast, you picked this as one of the 3 albums that you would take to a desert island.
Hell yeah.
I have given it repeated listens since because I really enjoyed listening to it for the show. I thought it was going to be a one-hit wonder when I first listened to it and then be flat all around. But this album peaks and peaks and peaks. After we did that show, my friend Lenny, who is a great drummer, called me and, he wanted to let me know that he'd fallen in love with the album. So I don't know how you could just choose one song. It's all good.
Oh, it is. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great album. So there are our 5 people. We are done with it. Yeah.
We are. Well, we're not completely done. We got 5 more songs to add.
We got
from
6.
the Facebook poll. Oh my God, that's right. We got 6. Another week where we have a tie for that 5th spot.
Oh no, we have 7.
What?
Yeah, you'll see.
7.
Yep. Read through our 5.
Oh my God. Because I did this last night.
I know you did, but you wait.
Was there another one?
Well, we'll just go through our 5 first or our 6 and we'll get there.
Okay. All right. All right. You want to start or do you want me to?
I'll start with the very first song is Katrina and the Waves, Walking on Sunshine. A lot of people don't know Katrina and the Waves also won Eurovision for the UK. But yeah, really fun song. Come on. Who doesn't know that drum beat the minute it comes in?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The second song added is Dire Straits, Money for Nothing, a shoe-in.
Oh yeah,
no doubt
absolutely.
that was going to be in there.
Yeah, that song was right there. And then after that, we had Billy Idol's White Wedding. And I know, Matt, you wanted to disqualify it, but it did come out on a remix album that year. So I just found it kind of sitting there and added it to the list. And boy, did people vote for it. So they would have voted for it in any year.
Yeah.
It belongs there.
and now it kind of frees up a slot for both of us because we don't have to worry about adding the song for 1982 to our 5.
And we have to have Billy Idol there. So
damn right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't need Moni Moni.
No.
Agreed. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. The next song is Heart in These Dreams. Of course, there had to be a song from this album on there. It's a great album.
It is absolutely
one of the great singles.
Definitely. And that's 2 weeks in a row. We have a Heart song.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good stuff. After that, Madonna, Crazy for You. I know I complained about some of Madonna's songs in the past. I like this song. This is a really cool, sensitive, just timeless kind of love song. And it's also a song that I love to get drunk and sing to Linda. So
too much information, Jim.
this is a bad karaoke song for me.
Is this your Pepe Le Pew moment?
It absolutely is.
Hello there, my little darling.
Touch me once and you know it's true. All right.
From another great soundtrack, right?
Yeah, Vision Quest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matthew Modine, the wrestler.
Yeah. Yeah. Good movie. Underrated movie. Yeah. Underrated 80s movie. Go check it out.
And you get this last one because it all goes.
I get this one. Yes. Motley Crue, Home Sweet Home, right? I already said it. It's still an awesome song. Still rocks.
It does. I think I told you at one point that this is actually a song that kind of touches me from time to time if it comes on when I'm listening to a playlist, and it just gets me kind of nostalgic about being back in Vermont. So I like Home Sweet Home. I'm glad it's there.
There are so many heavy hitters that we left by the roadside this week. I was surprised Take On Me and Shout from Tears for Fears didn't get more votes.
Hey,
and Julie, thanks for adding those to the poll.
Hey. I brought this up earlier in the week. Julie put a lot of effort into adding those songs. I took 2 of her picks off because they were my picks this week. So I am adding Take On Me to the playlist as the top vote getter of the song she added. That type of engagement is really appreciated. So thank you, Julie. Take On Me. It's going on there. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a couple honorable mentions before we go. I was going to add them in the poll, but I kind of found them late because 1985 is a low-key, really deep, good year for music. I would have been curious how Voices Carry from Till Tuesday and Center Field from John Fogerty would have fared.
Oh man, who doesn't remember that clapping section from Center Field?
Oh yeah, great.
And also, I'm just going to say John Cougar Mellencamp, because that's what they still called him at that time. And the song Small Town, Rain on the Scarecrow, that album came out in 1985. Yeah,
wasn't this RLCK in the USA?
Yeah, it was. That was the year. And you're correct. It was definitely a better year than I originally thought that it was.
Yeah, it's a low-key great year. That was a good choice. And there's still so much more we don't have time for.
No, yeah. We'll have to revisit this in a cleanup episode, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Matt. So that's it. 1985 is behind us. Where are we going now?
Well, I'm just going to rip off the Band-Aid. 2015. And right now, I kind of see it on your face. Which version of Matt am I going to get? Will it be Indie Alley or will it be Rap? And truth be told, I'm kind of wondering that myself.
I think
which road I go down. Yeah, I might just go down both. We'll see.
There go our listeners next week.
Oh, come on, man. The cure.
No, I definitely think this is going to be a challenge, but I'm ready for good surprises. And I've got an ace. I've been holding up my sleeve, waiting to pull out on you in 2015 this entire time for the whole show.
Ace Frehley? Ace Frehley's got an album
out? No. Wait till you hear this. All right, Matt.
You got me a little nervous.
You should be. You should be. Matt, it is your turn to take the wheel. So wrap this up and drive us home.
And I shall wrap it up. We can't express how much we appreciate everyone tuning in. We had 85 votes on the Facebook poll this week. So thank you for that engagement. We really appreciate it. And we recognize there's so many ways you could have spent this last hour or however long this episode ended up being. We're very thankful you chose to spend that time with us. It's just 2 guys talking about a bunch of music and probably being idiots in your opinion. But, we hope to see everyone back next time for version 2015. Jim, as always, it's been a pleasure. And I know we're going to be in touch. So until next time, so long from the Jam Yearbook.
Hey, everybody. Thank you again for listening. It's been a great time, Matt, talking to you as well. And everybody out there. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for all the votes this week. Please give us something for 2015 to talk about.
Yes, please. Because in 2015, these are years where, at least from my side, I don't know what everybody else is listening to.
Yeah, we want to know.
So that's kind of what I want to, I want to know.
probably 1985 music. That's the problem.
They wouldn't be wrong, though.
No, they wouldn't. Everybody, thank you very much. Peace, love, and podcast.